Hey everyone, it's the real QSTORM. So yes, the day has finally come. Probably the most anticipated film of this year, 2016, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Even though it sounds like the title of a courtroom drama, no, this is the film that unites two of DC's most popular characters ever, Batman and Superman, on screen for the first time. Let me just get right into it. Okay, take a little bit of Michael Bay, add in a dash of Spider-Man 3 screenplay, and you've got Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Now, that's the short version. Let me qualify that. There are two types of scenes in BVS: scenes with too much talking and scenes with way too much noise. Surprisingly, the first 45 minutes of this movie are leaden, dull, and boring. Despite that, you know what the common denominator is amongst nearly every scene? Yes, make no mistake, this is Batman's movie. There's a reason Batman's name comes first in the title. I mean, this movie proves that Snyder can develop a character when he wants to, yet Snyder failed to do that same magic for Superman in his own movie 2 years ago. While Batman comes across as a fully developed and fully realized character and far more interesting, Superman is stuck in neutral. The script has Superman still wallowing in the same themes that were poorly addressed in Man of Steel. I honestly lost count of the number of scenes of dialogue pondering Superman's place in the world.
Today is a day for truth.
What he owes or doesn't owe the world. What he means or doesn't mean to the world.
Maybe he's just a guy trying to do the right thing.
Enough already. Even ghosts come back to the Arctic Circle in this movie to lecture Superman about his place in the world. Given this movie takes place 2 years after Man of Steel, why are these still the questions being asked about the quintessential superhero? This Superman bears no resemblance to the Superman I know. He's sullen, morose, and kind of brutal. In one scene, he declares, "Well, I didn't kill those men." But you're Superman, and men shouldn't die on your watch. That's not supposed to happen. This Superman may not directly kill, but he sure the hell doesn't mind injuring a dude. That's not Superman. There's a scene where he smashes a bad guy through a stone wall at super speed, I'm sure reducing the guy to a bloody pulp. So if you were trying to give Superman the benefit of the doubt for all the destruction in Man of Steel, you know, excuses like, well, it was his first time as a superhero fighting a bad guy, Snyder makes it clear here. This Superman doesn't give a f about you. He also has a serious God complex. He hovers a lot as people reach out to him. He looks to the sky as people surround him in awe and touch him. And he wonders why people don't identify with or understand him. Here's the thought. Just try smiling once in a while. That goes a long way.
Smile, though your heart is aching.
You used to really have a thick, full head of hair.
This all leads me to believe that either Snyder doesn't understand Superman, or he just doesn't like him and doesn't care about getting him right. Besides all that, Cavill just seems bored playing him. There's an early scene where Lois and Clark are kind of snuggling up, where Cavill actually does smile and he looks like he's having fun. But once the suit and cape goes on, it's a constant scowl. I mean, constant. David Richard of the Fantastic Facebook page summed it up best. Rather than watching Batman v Superman, it's kind of like watching two Batmen go at it. Batman steals the show. He's given the bulk of screen time, almost to the point where you feel like they kind of reshot scenes with him to amp him up in the film. There's one scene which reeks of a reshoot to give Batman more screen time. It's a fight scene between Batman and a room full of thugs. It's a pulse-pounding scene. It shows us Batman at his fighting best. But it's a shame Snyder shoots it so frenetically, making it difficult sometimes to follow the action. Affleck does make a decent Bruce Wayne. I have to offer up my mea culpas because I was one of those guys that was not very happy when Affleck got the role. And Affleck is given much more to work with. However, unlike Nolan's Caped Crusader, this Batman has no problem killing bad guys, which is not the Batman I remember. I also don't remember any mention of Batman in Man of Steel. I say that only because it seems like this Batman has been putting in work all along, as opposed to coming out of retirement as an older Batman, as I thought was the case. I thought this was based on Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns somewhat, this Batman. If so, I would have expected to at least have heard him mentioned in Man of Steel. I won't even go into the fact that Affleck really does not look old enough to play a quote-unquote older Batman. Seems like to me, if they were being true to the Miller comic, Jeremy Irons would have been playing Bruce Wayne as opposed to Ben Affleck. But that's another story. Then there's Lex Luthor, played by Jesse Eisenberg, who was apparently given the idea that Lex should be played like a second-rate Joker.
Hi, hello, Lex, it is a pleasure. Ow, wow, that is a good grip. You should not pick a fight with this person.
He over-emotes in every scene as though he's really mentally unstable. As I suspected, he makes for a terrible Lex Luthor, even if he's playing Lex Luthor Jr. I mentioned Spider-Man 3 earlier as a comparison to this movie. That's because, like that movie, this movie also does way too much. Elements are crammed into the story and simply feel like contractual obligation. There is a story here that would make for an excellent hour on Netflix right after watching Daredevil, but there's way too much bloat here and much more editing was needed. The obligation to tease the fanboys and tie this into the upcoming Justice League movie is obvious in a scene that introduces other heroes in a second-hand manner. And my question is, where were they when Zod was attacking Metropolis? Gal Gadot, bless her heart, is completely shoehorned in as Wonder Woman. Gadot's heart is in the right place, and I have to admit she doesn't completely suck as Wonder Woman, but physically, she's not there. She's still a lightweight in appearance, and her reveal in costume just seems arbitrary. And I can't help but ask the question again, where was she when Metropolis was being destroyed by Zod? Why did she decide to show up now?
English, mother, do you speak it?
Okay, I get it. Well, let me also say that neither Batman nor Superman behave consistently. The centerpiece battle between Batman and Superman provided thrills initially, but the motivation for the fight made absolutely no sense, involving the use of a minor character like a chess pawn simply to move the plot along. It made no sense, not from Batman's perspective and especially not from Superman's perspective. By the way, that fight scene lasted all of 20 minutes, maybe less. Making even less sense is the motivation for Superman and Batman to actually team up. I won't spoil anything, but I've read Superman books where Superman was faced with a similar dilemma and he didn't have to submit to a fight to solve the problem. He was able to use his superpowers to solve the problem himself. And it's hard to believe Superman would unleash on Batman the way he does, knowing he could kill him even if he's wearing armor. Now, the motivation for Superman and Batman to team up makes even less sense. And the climactic battle with Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman in full posing mode for the fanboys comes off as being tacked on, just like Venom was at the conclusion of Spider-Man 3. It's Snyder in full Bay mode, Michael Bay that is, where he seems not to give a shit about all the criticism about the destruction in Man of Steel, and even amps it up here in an orgy of explosions, hard-to-track camera moves, and a really fake-looking CGI monster. There's a surprise pull from the Superman comics that I did not see coming at the end, which just felt like a surprise for the sake of a surprise. Given we know what's yet to come from the DC movies, as well as seeing how Doomsday is created, none of this third act is effective and just raises more questions, at least for me, like, okay, does the world love Superman or hate him? The world needs to make up its mind. I didn't go into this with high expectations. The sad thing about it is I could see a decent movie here. It's just buried under a seam-splitting plot, an overabundance of characters, and an overlong running time. Now, I will say, as much as I hated the third act of Man of Steel, it was cool seeing Metropolis at street level during the Zod battle at the beginning of this movie. And like I said, the fight between the titular characters was cool, even if it didn't make much sense and it didn't go on very long. Oh, I almost forgot to mention Hans Zimmer. His score is once again extremely annoying. Overall, it's another dreary, overwrought entry in the post-Nolan world of DC films. I give it 2 out of 5 reels. I should point out that the Civil War trailer, which played right before BVS began, was met with applause at the screening I attended, and I was probably clapping the loudest. Perhaps they should have played that trailer during an intermission, and believe me, this film was long enough to warrant an intermission, to inject some element of fun in this movie. So for now, enough of Batman v Superman. I'm gonna go catch up on People v OJ.
So will you come to Hawaii with me, Jerry?
Maybe I will, Lois. Maybe I will.
And that's the martini.